But first, we're 1 week away from the Nevada caucus, and early voting is happening right now at 82 sites across the state. NBC's Simone Boyce is at one of those early voting sites right now. Simone, tell us what it is like on the ground there.
Alicia, we are here at the East Las Vegas Library, and I want to start by talking about the appearance that we had from former Senator Harry Reid. He stopped by here just a little while ago, and this was really his vision for the Nevada Democratic Party. He wanted this state to be involved, to be one of these early states that would be able to weigh in on who the Democratic nominee would be, because he believes that Nevada offers a more diverse group of voters. We have to remember that here the population in the state of Nevada is made up of 29% Hispanic people, 10% Black people, about 9% Asian folks live here in Nevada. So Senator Reid spoke about the fact that this is a more diverse electorate than Iowa or New Hampshire. And he also spoke about the fact that he believes Bernie Sanders has the potential to beat Trump. He did build him up in that way. And I thought it was interesting that he mentioned that it's too early to count out Joe Biden just yet. He thinks that Biden could potentially do well here in Nevada as well as in South Carolina. Now, inside here right now, there are people who are participating in early voting as we speak, as well as at several other locations across the city that have been strategically placed in neighborhoods where people of color live in order to make sure that this process is more accessible to a wider group of voters. Here's what some of the voters had to say.
Well, I kind of just wanted to get out early. A caucus really takes like 2 or 3 hours, and I figure early voting will get in and out under an hour.
My husband and I have always early voted. We want it out of the way before the lines get too long, then it gets unimaginable. I've recently had back surgery, so I've got to haul this thing around, so I don't want those long lines.
Now, what happens from here, Alicia, is a bit confusing. The results from these early vote locations, they will be on paper ballots. They will be scanned so that that information will be available electronically so that it can be integrated with the caucus data in real time on Saturday. So we won't know these early vote results until next weekend.
When you talk about all of these voters who they are hoping to turn out, which groups on the ground, who is organizing and working to turn those voters out?
You know, there are several groups that work with folks from different communities, like the AAPI community, for example. That's the Asian American Pacific Islander community. I've spoken to people from the Asian American Pacific Islander Democratic Caucus who are out there working with people, Filipino people, as well as Vietnamese folks. There's a location in Chinatown, an early voting location in Chinatown. So that organization has been working to draw out voters to that location. There's Mi Familia Vota, which works with several Hispanic and Latinx folks here in Nevada. They are going to have a massive built-out schedule of events this week to try and draw out people to these polling locations, and early voting is going to be available through the 18th. So there is no shortage, Alicia, of organizations that are on the ground making sure that this historic early vote period is successful in the way that Democrats want it to be.
All right, Simone, thank you so much. One candidate who will not be on the ballot in Nevada is getting a lot of attention today. Michael Bloomberg having to answer renewed questions about his record as mayor and a businessman. This piece from the Washington Post outlining past allegations of profane sexist comments and discrimination against women in the workplace. The campaign responding today, characterizing these complaints as, quote, old news, and saying Bloomberg, quote, does not tolerate any kind of discrimination or harassment. Let's bring in Hayes Brown. He's the world news editor at BuzzFeed and host of the Impeachment Today podcast. Erin Haynes, she's editor-at-large at the 19th, a nonprofit newsroom covering race, gender, and politics. And Gabriela Domensain, she was a spokesperson for the Obama campaign and deputy campaign manager for Martin O'Malley's presidential run. Hi, friends. Thank you all for being here. Great to see you.
Glad to be here.
Erin, when you look at that article, those cases are old, the article is new. What does it tell you that it's resurfacing?
Well, it tells me that, there is concern about Mayor Bloomberg gaining traction with voters. And,
You mean from his fellow Democratic
from his fellow Democrats. And so, obviously with him getting into the race and him dominating a lot of advertising with, him being able to put his own narrative out there, you have folks who are wanting a fuller airing of his record, maybe some of the things that he's not looking to publicize, particularly around his comments and actions around race and gender. And so, with him controlling so much of the narrative, I think what we're seeing is efforts to counter that, which are particularly interesting leading up to this first debate that he will be participating in, where I expect that he's going to get even more questions from his fellow Democrats in the race.
Yeah, Senator Klobuchar was asked if she wanted to see him on that debate stage, and she said, yes, of course I want to see him on that debate stage. I can't beat him on the airwaves. I need to go toe-to-toe with him on the stage.
And she also couldn't name who the president of Mexico was.
We'll get to that in a minute.
I mean, this is a traditional oppo dump, right? So as soon as a candidate comes up, all of the opposition research that all campaigns do is ready for those moments. And that's what it's showing, right? So Democratic and establishment Democrats are getting scared because of the Sanders momentum, tweaking the rules in order for Bloomberg to be able to get in. And now people are starting to attack him. And obviously, especially, I mean, we're in New York on issues of race and criminal justice. We have a lot to look into. Sorry sometimes isn't enough.
And he has this interesting place of being someone who's a known national figure, but not really. People know that he was the former mayor of New York.
Right.
People know Bloomberg News, but they don't really know too much about him. They know that stop and frisk was a thing, but a lot of people in the country don't really know what that entails. And so with Bloomberg, like you guys said, dominating the airwaves, he's been able to try and take the focus off of that. He's been running this commercial that shows that him and Obama were BFFs when really they were not. And so this ability of his to spend money in states where people just do not have an infrastructure yet and build out himself as this sort of, liberal lion that people are really needing to cheer for as he comes through their state is fascinating and wild.
I want to pick up on that Obama BFF status because there is a clip that has been making the rounds today. Take a look.
Today, we are more segregated in America, certainly, than we were in terms of race, than we were a dozen years ago. And yet we're just finishing up 8 years with our first black president. Why are we more separated than we were before? That is the question you've got to ask yourself. Why during the Obama administration didn't we pull together? Well, I ask the president. That's his job, really, to pull people together.
All right.
A lot of size around the table right away.
Exactly.
That clip is from 2016.
And that's exactly the point. I mean, I think what's been interesting about this clip that's out today and some of the more recent stories that have surfaced about him is that this is recent, right? This is not like some of the criticism against Vice President Biden, for example, or Senator Bernie Sanders, for example. Their problematic comments around race that have surfaced. These are things that have happened, within the last decade a lot of times. And, Mayor Bloomberg is somebody who's been in public life for a long time. And so these things are in plain sight, for any of us to surface.
Something about the dynamics of this campaign, right? Which is all of the people who were perceived to be front runners months ago got a pretty thorough public vetting. And what I think we're seeing now is the fact that you have all of a sudden a candidate that has emerged, even with Amy Klobuchar, right? The fact that no one was perceiving her as a front runner, but they're now looking at her record as a prosecutor, asking her questions about immigration. I'm sure you saw her recent pivot on immigration. Part of that is about the way this process has gone down.
And in some way, it's very good that Nevada is coming at this time, right? But also all of these attacks are very much about race.
Very good, because you're putting race and immigration in the forefront?
Yeah. Well, no. Yes, exactly. And Latino voters to begin with, right? So we have all this talk about how Iowa Latino voters are very little, even though Bernie Sanders did an amazing job in organizing them, which is leaps and bounds from where we were with Latino engagement even 4 years ago, right? But so it's not rare that Michael Bloomberg is being attacked on African American issues right before South Carolina.
I do have to ask you, because there was another Bloomberg headline that people have been buzzing about, which was this rumor on the front page of Drudge that he would consider picking Hillary Clinton as his VP running mate. That went from sigh to groan. Tell me why.
Yeah, I don't buy that at all, to be honest. I mean,
because the campaign not denying it.
I mean, here's the thing. I'm not surprised that he's trying to, latch onto this idea that he will be a, centrist Democrat, that he wants to bring in someone who people know, who people who voted for in 2016, who they think, yeah, that'd be a great vice president. Bloomberg, he's got, all of his stuff that he's done as mayor. He can bring the country together. Hillary Clinton will unite everyone else. I don't see that as really happening.
Well, that was some sloppy math you just threw threw together there.
Exactly.
I mean, is it that, or is the argument that one could make that there are a lot of people who did want to see Hillary Clinton as president, who are still sort of latently fired up from 4 years ago, and it is an enthusiasm that he can tap into?
Well, I think that is it. I mean, Democrats across the board, including Mayor Bloomberg, are looking to excite voters because we know that Democrats are going to need to have a record turnout in the fall if they expect to beat this incumbent who still enjoys a lot of popularity with his base. And so, throwing out the name of somebody like, Hillary Clinton, who, while she was a polarizing figure, is still hugely popular, with a lot of her supporters. Why not let that, kind of sit out there and not respond and let it be a thing?
Because I want to toss this to you, because doesn't it then fire up some of the supporters of other people who are still in the field, who don't want to see a Hillary Clinton on the ticket?
I'm just like, maybe I don't want to be the cynic at this table, but this is coming up when Michael Bloomberg gets hit on how he treated women, right?
Yeah.
So it's just a little bit too convenient for me for this to be even floating. And you're absolutely right? So he's a centrist candidate waiting in the kind of wings until other people fall apart. Sanders supporters, progressive supporters, don't like Hillary Clinton. This isn't something that's going to motivate them. On the contrary, bringing in Hillary Clinton reminds them of the quote-unquote rigged election of the last 4 years. Right?
What I will also say on that too is that Hillary Clinton has kind of loomed over this primary over the past several weeks, and I wonder how long that's going to continue. As we go on with voting, how will Hillary Clinton continue to factor into this primary?
Right, it's a question we'll continue to ask. Still ahead, the president's relationship with his attorney general is under the microscope after a wild week of headlines. We'll talk about where Bill Barr stands in the Trump administration.